Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my trusted colleague, Weston Hodkowitz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to preview this Sunday's matchup, Wes. It will be the Packers and the Jaguars from Jacksonville. It's a noon Central Time kickoff. And looking at this Jacksonville team, it's been, I guess you just say, a strange season in a lot of ways for them. They start out the year 0-4, but 3 of those losses in that 4-game losing streak were by 5 points or less. They lost by 3 to Miami, by 5 to Cleveland, by 4 to Houston. So they are 0-4 out of the gate. Things are not going well. But since then, now they've gone 2-1 with victories over the Colts and the Patriots, a loss to the Chicago Bears in between. They've played their last 2 games in London, so they were in London for an extended period of time. Now they're coming back home to Jacksonville to face the Packers, and they feel like they've got some things going in the right direction, but they still have a ways to go, obviously, to get to where they want to be, and I'm sure that Jacksonville is looking at this game against the Packers as a potential turning point to their season if they can chalk up a win.
Yeah, it's a get-back game in a lot of ways. And listen, Mike, I'm going to sit here with you, and I'm going to be real. I mean, there are some offensive threats that I think the Packers have to be very cognizant of in this matchup. Defensively, Jacksonville's kind of been a train wreck for most of the season. They are 2-5 for a reason. The New England Patriots potentially could be the worst team in the National Football League. What they did to them last week, especially being in that second week in London, I anticipated that. I expected it. Trevor Lawrence has looked a lot better in these last 3-4 weeks. I think Tank Bigsby potentially gives them an every down running back that they could potentially ride. And Brian Thomas, very dynamic. Evan Ingram is back offensively. A lot there for the Jaguars, depending on what happens. Defensively, it's hard to find a lot of statistics that really jump off the page positive in their fashion, in their manner. Trevon Walker's off to a good start. They do have some playmakers there, but as a collective, they've really struggled. So you're absolutely right. They were close in some of these losses. They also just got completely blown out of the water by Buffalo. They really
and by the Bears in London, quite frankly.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, the Bears, they took it to them.
Yeah,
they really struggled to get things going against Chicago. So the Green Bay Packers, they have to take this team extremely serious. You have to not look past them. But as much as it's good to point out, and I think that's a good message for LaFleur to mention this team, they could easily be 5-2 when they're 2-5. The Jaguars are 2-5, and while they are coming off a win, if you flip that game with the Bears, it would feel a lot differently too. I mean, there was a lot of conversations after that loss to Chicago about exactly which direction that team may go.
Yeah, absolutely.
They responded appropriately, but at the same time, Packers have won 3 games against the AFC South. I mean, this is not the time to let one go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking to sweep that AFC division here if you're Green Bay. Looking at some of the numbers, Trevor Lawrence, the former number 1 overall pick out of Clemson, he has a 92.3 passer rating this year, which is not bad. But I think everybody has seen Trevor Lawrence play better at other times in his career than he's playing this year. The one real positive for him is that he's only thrown 3 interceptions this year. He has been protecting the football maybe better than he has at other points.
I think he was 4th or 5th in interceptions last season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for what he's been able to do, protecting it has been very critical.
Yeah. You mentioned Tank Bigsby, the running back. And I just have to say, I think this is the first time in Packers history that they are playing an opponent with someone whose first name is Tank 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it has to be.
Throw that out there.
I'd have to ask Cliff about the 1920s.
Yeah, maybe back in the...
I could see a Tank Callaway or something like
Minneapolis Marines or something had a couple of tanks on their team. But Bigsby, 6.2 yards per carry, that's nothing to sneeze at with the workload that he's been given. And then Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie wide receiver, I'm really stumbling over my words today, out of LSU, he's averaging 17.1 yards per catch. He is the big play guy. You mentioned they get Evan Ingram back from injury, and that's a tight end who likes to stretch the field and provides another weapon, certainly on offense there. But those are the numbers that stick out to me, just the yards per carry for Bigsby, the yards per catch for Thomas. Defensively, Travon Walker, another number one overall pick that the Jaguars have. He's got 6 sacks this season. He really is the star and the heart and soul of that defense. But a couple of defensive statistics that will tell you how much they are struggling. One is that opponents are converting 45% of the time on third down. I'm not sure exactly where that ranks because I didn't have time to look that up before we turned the cameras on, but 45% allowing third down conversions is terrible.
26th.
26th. It's not good. The other is that the defense has only taken the ball away 3 times all season in 7 games. They have 1 interception. They have 2 fumble recoveries. This is not a defense that has done much to help the offense at all. And I mentioned this on our 3 Things video yesterday. Now, the Jaguars offensively don't give it away a bunch. As I mentioned, Lawrence just has the 3 interceptions. I believe they only have 4 lost fumbles. So 7 giveaways in 7 games, that's pretty darn good. But they only have 3 takeaways in 7 games. If you're the Packers, you're coming off of a 3 giveaway game of your own where there needs to be that added emphasis again on protecting the ball. It really becomes paramount in this game because you can't turn the ball over to the Jaguars and sort of let them break profile, right? Because if this defense for Jacksonville suddenly breaks profile, their team will look a lot different and they put themselves in a much better position to knock you off.
Very strange statistics defensively because the other thing is, they've really struggled on third downs, but they're 6th against the run so far this season in yards per game, and even in yards per play is 7th. At 4.15, passing defense 31st, total yards 27th. They are the worst team in the NFL in goal to go. They are the only team that has yet to prevent a team from scoring a touchdown once they enter the red zone. Opponents converting at a 100% clip in goal to go. In red zone, they're also 32nd, 78.26. So making sure I get those statistics right. It's been a grind.
Yeah,
now,
it's tough.
To dress it up a little bit for the Jaguars, offensively, I think they're doing some really good things. I think the switch to Bigsby, Travis Etienne really had struggled earlier this season. I know this because Travis Etienne was my RB2 on my fantasy league, and now it's Tank Bigsby. Hashtag analysis. But Bigsby, he has that big run, and he has that 6.2 yards per clip, but last week he showed he could just be a bell cow for them and carry the ball 26 times for 119 yards with nothing longer than 14 per carry, along with the 2 touchdowns. Again, using the caveat that New England has really struggled in basically every phase this year. It was the Patriots, but you still have to have something to hang your hat on. When you talk about, I think, Trevor Lawrence and the difference that he's made the last few weeks, I think it's the fact that he hasn't had to be Superman as often. I think he only threw the ball maybe 20 or 21 times in that game against New England. The other thing is, too, Michael, the receivers have to pick him up. You've seen there's been low light after low light of receivers dropping passes in the end zone that he has put on the money.
Yep.
And guys are just not making plays for him. Yep. And it's guys that have made plays. Christian Kirk had a lot of success with him last season. I mean, you look at Gabe Davis, a guy that I've always been very high on, a downfield threat. It isn't just the Brian Thomas show. I mean, they have guys they can turn to, but it just hasn't been working out for them this season. So They definitely got that win. They're going to be feeling better about themselves. But I think the Green Bay Packers, this is a game where if you take the ball away, if you can get back on that train here and you can convert that into points, I think that sets up Green Bay for a victory.
Yeah, a couple of other things to point out. One is that last week Jacksonville had a punt return, the length of the field, 96 yards for a touchdown. That was kind of the play really that broke New England's back as the Jaguars were coming back from an early 10-0 deficit. I think they scored like 25 straight points before New England scored again, and within that run of 25 straight points was a 96-yard punt return for a touchdown. So that's something Rich Bisaccia and crew, they need to be on their P's and Q's with that kind of a threat. Also, statistically, I noticed in the first quarter, the Jaguars have been outscored 41-20. And in the fourth quarter, they've been outscored 69-33. So first quarter, last quarter, the opponents have more than doubled their point total through the first 7 games. This is not a team that starts games well. This is not a team that finishes games well. And it's one of the games where I look at it again. I talked about sort of don't let them break profile on defense and start taking the ball away. You want the Jaguars to just be the Jaguars, keep them where they are, and that's where really this game. And we'll get into maybe some more specific keys to victory in a moment. But this is the kind of game that this is a lot more about the Green Bay Packers and what the Packers do and how they're going to execute on their end, much more so than it's about anything that the Jaguars are going to do.
100%. I mean, you've heard Tucker Kraft talk numerous times this year about the Packers versus the Packers and not hurting themselves. And I think that's something that's really held true. Last week was actually an indication where Green Bay did hurt itself in a lot of ways, but it didn't come back to cost them in the win column. And one of the big reasons for that is complementary football-wise. They did pick each other up, and one issue in one phase didn't cause another phase to lapse.
Right.
And I think that's going to be very critical in a game like this against Jacksonville because, again, the Jaguars are home, and they are going to have a little bit more positive vibes behind them after that win against New England. But it's been a grind for them throughout the course of this year. I'm very interested to see with the Parker Washington thing what becomes of that because I think it was Devin Duvernay was actually the one that was the punt returner for them. Now he's on injured reserve. Washington has only had, I think, 3 punt returns. He's only been back there 5 times, and then he ends up cranking that big return. So
yeah,
things like that change the complexion of a ball game. And as you said, that sort of threw the door shut on the Patriots. But overall, the number one point you've been driving home all week, the fact that they have not taken the ball away much defensively, if you are able to protect the football and find a way to get some opportunities on the other end of things, I think it works out in the Packers' favor.
Yeah, and that's the biggest key to victory that jumps out to me in this one for the Packers, primarily because Green Bay is coming off of a 3 giveaway game that almost cost you a game that line of scrimmage-wise, you felt you were in control of the game against the Texans for quite a bit, but because of the giveaways, you almost coughed that one up at home. This game is about protecting the football. You have to do what you do on offense, protect the ball, and make a Jaguars defense that hasn't stopped teams on third down, as you mentioned, that hasn't stopped teams in the red zone or hasn't stopped teams in goal to go. You have to put yourself in those situations as an offense for the Packers. And if you protect the football, you ought to be able to put up enough points to win the game.
It's a weird situation, though, because Josh Hines-Allen is there as well. He's a former first-round pick for them. He had 17.5 sacks last year. He only has 2 this year, but he actually has more quarterback hits than Walker does. So, I mean, they have guys that can get after the quarterback. Eric Armstead, is also there. I mean, they have names that you would expect to be able to pressure and generate positive opportunities. It just has not worked out for them to this point, whatever that combination may be. Before we started the show, I was praising Tyson Campbell as a guy I thought has come in the league and been a very capable guy for them on the perimeter since drafting him in the 2nd round back in 2021. So Green Bay has to figure out what it needs to do in this matchup to be able to find that victory. But fact of the matter is, these games are never easy. And one of the things I was sort of reminiscing about this week is I believe this is the 4th time I'm covering a Jaguars game, and the Packers have never blown them out that I can recall.
No.
Even I wrote this in Insider Inbox in 2012 when the Jaguars were off to a terrible start, and I believe, trying to remember if that was Blaine Gabbert still or if they had already made the switch to Chad Henne. In 2012, the Packers were like 16.5-point favorites at Lambeau Field. Green Bay was off to like a 5-3 start. Obviously, they had the issue with the Hail Mary, but the Jaguars had 1 win to that point, and they gave them a run for their money.
Yeah.
The 2016 game, I think, was a little bit more decisive, but then even the 2020 game, the 2020 game was more decisive. The 2016 game, when you and I went down to Jacksonville and it was 95 degrees out for the opener, a game that was a knockdown, drag-out battle that I think came right down to the final whistle pretty much, and then the Jaguars ended up getting on a pretty rough start the rest of the way. So you expect a tough matchup, but the Green Bay Packers have won 3 in a row here, and as we've talked about numerous times now, to be in a position to potentially sweep the AFC South, when you get those non-conference victories in your back pocket, those are sometimes the currency that can kind of propel you with not only the playoffs, but if you get there, the postseason seedings as well. Yeah.
What are you anticipating in terms of the crowd for this one? We've seen Packers fans take over Nashville, take over LA. This could be another home game on the road for Green Bay because traditionally, anytime the Packers are playing in Florida, whether it's Tampa or Miami or Jacksonville, whatever, the fans generally show up.
And if you looked at the price of tickets at all, I mean, it's pretty cheap.
Okay.
I mean, so if you're a Packer fan in that part of the country, you can compare to what people have paid in L.A. and some of these other venues.
Yeah, the ticket prices in L.A. were kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty economical. Even Nashville, like I think as you had seen. I expect a Packers-type crowd, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, Jaguars do have a fan base, and they were very... Coming off of last year, I think there was a lot of positive optimism. I mean, they gave Trevor Lawrence that extension for a reason. I mean, they felt like they were on the next step.
Well, it's interesting what's happened because 2 years ago, Doug Peterson comes in and things seem to really be getting on the right track with Trevor Lawrence. They make the playoffs. They have that monster comeback in the playoff game against the Chargers, right, to win a playoff game. Last year, they... midway through the year, they look like they're on their way to winning the AFC South and getting back to the playoffs. And I forget if it was whatever, they lost, 6 of their last 7 or whatever. It was
5 of their last 6.
5 of their last 6.
Yeah.
They just completely fell apart in the last month and a half of the season, let a playoff berth get away. And then they come out this year and start 0-4. So, carrying over from the one season to the next, that they lost 9 out of 10 games.
Yeah.
To a team that for a year and a half, more than a year and a half, looked like a playoff team and was a playoff caliber team, suddenly loses 9 out of 10, and here they are, reaching close to the midway point of 2024 and trying to figure out where they're going. It's been bizarre.
Yeah, and their one win was a 26-0 shutout of the Panthers. I mean, and I think that was after the Packers had played the Panthers.
Yeah.
In Carolina. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there, but again, and I know you'll probably, after we get through everything, probably ask me more about the keys of victory in this thing, but stopping Bigsby, stopping ETN, and then limiting the explosive plays. I mean, you do those 3 things, I think the takeaways and the turnover opportunities will come. And also, this is another game, too, where Packers have had to be so cerebral with how they've rushed these quarterbacks, these scrambling-type quarterbacks, and not that, Lawrence is a statue back there. I mean, he has a 33-yard run this year, too, but this is one where I think more traditionally the Packers could get after him, and Devontae Wyatt could potentially be back in the cards for them this weekend. That helps the defensive front. You have a number of different guys that could potentially be involved in that equation. But at the end of the day, you got to take care of business, and this is going to be one of the big challenges here for Green Bay before you get back to Lambeau Field and have that last one against the Lions before the bye week.
Before the bye week, yeah. A little bit of sponsor business here. West Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. And at Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Looking around at Week 8, kind of an important one tonight, Thursday night, that Packers fans will have their eye on. Minnesota on the short week, hopping on the plane to go out to the West Coast to take on the Rams. The Rams reportedly getting Cooper Kupp back as a big-time weapon for Matthew Stafford. And the Vikings coming off of their first loss of the year, that down-to-the-wire defeat to the Detroit Lions last week at home for them. Kind of an interesting one here, and you've got much as we've talked about before with the Rams and Sean McVay. Now you have the Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell head coaching matchup
right
in this one as well.
This is the other thing that's funny, that there's a possibility here that Kupp is back, but then Jordan Whittington, who was the guy that was sort of the main go-to guy in the game against Green Bay, he's now out. Puka's still questionable. I mean, they haven't gotten any healthier, it really seems like, since the Packers saw him a few weeks ago. Yeah. Now, that being said, Blake Cashman is out for the Vikings, so, I mean, that's a huge loss for them. I feel like he's been one of the best, free agent signings we've seen in the league, and how he's come in there and sort of made a huge impact in that game against Green Bay.
Yep.
But seems like Aaron Jones has moved past the hamstring injury, so you still have him available. Another one of these that I think, as long as the NFC North keeps winning these matchups and these games, you're going to continually be trying to see exactly what other teams are able to do against them. From the Rams' perspective, though, you can't lose much more ground. I mean,
no.
It's going to be kind of a forgiving division, it looks like, this year for them, with all the issues that San Francisco's weathered and the fact that I don't think the Seahawks are a world beater. But you're still 2-5, and in trying to claim some more of those victories here to build up some momentum, you have to do it because the injuries aren't going away. And if you lose enough of these games, your playoff hopes will be out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. A few other games on Sunday that stick out to me, I'll just rattle them off and let you comment as you please. Chicago at Washington. Now there are questions as to whether Jaden Daniels, who has a rib injury, the quarterback for Washington, is he going to be able to play? Is he not? Obviously, there's been a lot of anticipation for the two rookie quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels against Caleb Williams. And certainly nobody had on their bingo card at the beginning of the season that Chicago and Washington would be flexed into the 325 national television slot. But there they are. Buffalo at Seattle strikes me as a very interesting cross-conference game, AFC versus NFC. Seattle snapped that 3-game losing streak last week. They got back on the winning track on the road in Atlanta with a pretty convincing victory there. And Buffalo still, looking like a very formidable team, but now having to make the long road trip out there. And then the Sunday night game, which hopefully will be home, coming back on the plane. I don't know, maybe we'll miss the first half, but a chance to maybe watch it from our couches after we get back from Jacksonville. Dallas at San Francisco.
Do I have to?
You don't want to watch Dallas and San Francisco?
No, I mean, it'll be okay. If San Francisco has some players on the field, sure.
It brings back, I guess, even just seeing those two helmets on the field, it brings back the college memories for me. Those early 90s, Dallas at San Francisco playoff games, those have stuck with me.
My snark aside, it's a huge game for both of these teams. Dallas got absolutely clobbered before their bye week. They come back now. You saw the statistics, how good Dak Prescott has been after the bye week, seeing if he can keep that going. But my goodness, man, it seems like every single week the 49ers lose somebody else. Kittle's still hurt. Ayuk is injured.
Yeah, they lost Ayuk for the season now after all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is gut check time for them sitting at 3-4. I think the other one, too, Atlanta and Tampa Bay, somebody in the NFC South trying to.
That is a big game in the NFC South with both of those teams coming off of home losses.
Yes.
Games that they were certainly hoping to win playing at home in some big matchups, but they both took a defeat. And somebody needs to take control of that NFC South.
And with Chicago and Washington, again, if Daniels can play in this thing, I think the reports were he's week to week. But if he can go, although we saw what that meant with Dontavian Wicks, he was week to week too, and he was out there on Sunday catching 30-yard touchdown passes. But
right.
But Daniels, I mean, this guy, dude, he has been just such an enigmatic force in the NFL this season. And Chicago's defense is legit. If that would match up is there, it'd be really interesting to watch that. As much as people will make it about Williams and Daniels, seeing how Daniels handles that Chicago defense, I think, is really interesting to me if it would work out that way. But certainly Washington, man, nobody saw this coming. Like with Dallas coming off the season that they did, Philadelphia still being a team that has some pop behind them after the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and here are the Washington Commanders just flying into this thing.
The one thing I'll say about Washington, not quarterback related, we have seen over the years, whether it's as a coordinator or as a head coach, wherever Dan Quinn goes, he makes an immediate impact on a defense. A defense under Dan Quinn starts to play significantly better right away. Now, there are times, I mean, in Dallas, he wasn't able to sustain it. Certainly in Seattle, they sustained it for a long time.
Yep.
And in Atlanta, they didn't quite really sustain it there either because they became much more dependent on Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and all of that. But Dan Quinn's track record is when he goes somewhere that he makes an immediate impact on the defense. And I think the combination of that with Jaden Daniels being this, eye-opening rookie quarterback, it's completely changed the outlook in Washington.
And I just love the construct of their entire offense, too. I mean, now, again, it changes if Marcus Mariota is the quarterback, but, Austin Eckler being the guy that's complimenting Robinson now, and the fact that you have, I think, Terry McLaurin, the Pandora's box has really been opened with him now in terms of this isn't just, kind of a smallish receiver that makes possession plays. No, he's a big play guy if he has the quarterback that can get him the ball. And just a lot of different avenues that they have to generate offense, in addition to the fact that, their defense has made a complete turnaround here this season.
Yeah.
As long as they're not playing the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, that was the one game there that you were kind of scratching your head with what was going on defensively.
Defense was optional for both teams.
Both teams in that game. That one got a little out of hand. But yeah, I think an interesting slate of games in Week 8 in the NFL. And looking ahead, 6 months down the road, be among the thousands of professional football fans cheering on their teams' NFL picks by joining us April 24th through April 26th in 2025 for the NFL Draft. Visit greenbay.com/draft25 for more information.
Have you decided if you're going to sleep here or not those 3 days?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I might get
maybe in our studio here we'll set up like a.
We have showers at Lambeau.
Yeah, we do. We got a lot. Yeah, we got a locker room that we could.
Do you have a locker in there?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, if you need to use mine,
but yeah,
let me know.
I'm sure I could.
I got shampoo.
I'm sure I could get one. Yeah.
What a way to end the show.
Yeah, we get to this and then we start talking about this thing that's going to happen in 6 months, and yeah, it's going to be historic. It's going to be one of a kind, but we're trying to figure out just how to do our jobs amidst all the chaos.
Week 8 already, buddy. Can you believe that?
I know. When you look at it, as far as preseason and regular season, 20 games, we're halfway there.
Oh, hey,
10 games out of 20 are in the books. Hopefully, it
feels like it.
Because, we're hoping to maybe have some playoffs, at the end of this.
100%. Mentally, man, I am just like I'm the coyote in the desert, like dragging myself to this bye week. Like it was like I think whatever I had left was it like the Bo Melton story, then the stuff I did last week, and now I'm just like. Just slightly clawing my way to that bye.
Yeah. I mean, and we've actually benefited from a lot of like noon games.
Yeah. Could you imagine
this stretch that we've got coming up with like 4 night games in a row or whatever it's going to be? Like, I might even have to have some coffee right here to get through Packers Unscripted.
Boy, wouldn't that be something?
Drinker.
We could do well, we couldn't do this because I don't think I can drink alcohol at work, but it would be like, you have a coffee and I have an IPA. And then it's like Freaky Friday.
There we
just switch it up and see which one of us gets through it first.
Yeah, there you
go.
There we go. All right. Well, we may just have to try that. Desperate times could call for desperate measures.
Hey, I want to close on this because we'll never have another chance to talk about this either. Remember how I was kind of ripping on the double Monday night football game?
Yeah.
Last week. Did you see what the ratings were for that ESPN Plus game for Arizona?
I mean, there was like hardly anybody who watched it.
No.
I mean, hardly anybody could watch it.
My dad, so I have like ESPN Plus, I can do all that stuff, but I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, you watching? He's like, no, I don't watch that stuff on the internet. I'm like, oh yeah, fair play. It's easy enough when it's right on the television. He doesn't need to go on the internet to watch any other football. Oh well.
All right.
What a great ending to the show. Fantastic.
With that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team and everything from Sunday's game in Jacksonville. We will be there, and we will have it all for you on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you next time.